So I wanted to give you a guide to the Guide to Practice. The Guide to Practice is a very important document. It is a way for PTs and PTAs to help define what we do, and it's also a way for those who aren't familiar with what we do to find out what we do. That would be payers, insurance companies in particular, and other consumers of healthcare, and other leaders in other professions, or people in other professions that want to know more about what we do as physical therapists and physical therapist assistants. It contains some very good problem-solving algorithms or templates to help a PT kind of decide based on a certain health condition what types of interventions might be useful to address the impairments or functional limitations in regards to that particular person that has that medical problem. I think what the guide does really well is that it really kind of complements the ICF model as well. We're looking at the activities, environment, social aspect of wellness, prevention as well. So it's one of those resources that's available to APTA members. So you do have to be a member to access the guide as a PTA. So I wanted to show you just what it looks like in terms of there is no longer a paper version of the Guide to Practice. It is now electronic. We do have a couple of older paper versions. I do have one, and Susan also has one at Table Rock campus that we're glad to share with you, but it's not the most recent version, which is the 3.0 version that is referenced down here. So what you want to really look at is because you can't access it, it's doesn't make a lot of sense to go ahead and really ask you to dig into it. So I'm just telling you some areas of the guide, and I'm going to show you what the guide looks like in terms of electronic version and just kind of some key elements within the guide itself. So I've already mentioned this number one, and so it really helps therapists and PTAs as well look at ways to help people with various health conditions involving major body systems, so the musculoskeletal system, the neuromuscular system, cardiopulmonary systems, as well as the integumentary system. Your textbook, actually, Pagarulo, covers the guide, page and chapter 2 on the physical therapist, on pages 25 and 27. So I wanted to call out particularly this, I think, a really good summary that the author of your textbook provides. So again, those four kind of major concepts, looking back at the ICF model, how these two really complement each other. The early emphasis now on ability versus disability, and the guide lists kind of the components of the well individual. And that term well individual means somebody who is really striving to be integrated in greater society, and those factors that that are part of that bigger picture that the ICF model captures as well. So evidence-based practice is the real fundamental part of the guide, and what you'll see when I open it up here in just a few minutes is how evidence-based practice is weaved into the guide throughout. So the guide really emphasizes, as well as this prevention and health promotion, that the role of us as a profession is certainly screening or looking For example, with young athletes, one thing that is done more and more is that PTs, and it can be a PTA with a PT, are actually going to high schools and doing ACL screenings for athletes before they get involved in basketball, for example, or volleyball. So that would be a way of screening and also looking at prevention of injuries. If that there is potentially a problem, to have that conversation with the individual athlete or parent and guardian as well. So prevention is a real big component of what we do, and it's called out in the Guide to Practice as well. The guide really looks looking back at the patient-client management model of the role of the PT as the PT sets up the plan of care. So starting out with the examination of the patient, and then completing the thorough evaluation using tests and measures to come up with a physical therapy diagnosis, to look at the length of the plan of care, how long is it anticipated that it'll take for the individual to meet the goals set out by the PT. And then the intervention piece is where the PTA comes in to help implement the plan of care of the PT through various interventions, such as use of modalities, for example, but primarily looking at areas of functional abilities, functional capacities, gait, therapeutic exercise, transfers, if someone has a health condition that prevent them from being fully independent, or where they're limited in transfers, for example. And then finally the outcomes. What was the result? Were the goals met in that time frame? And ultimately, where is the patient or the client at the end of the plan of care, when care has been completed? So you've already kind of looked at these different elements earlier this term, but I really think it's important to kind of just really be fluent, because this is ultimately what the care model, which is the care model we use in physical therapy. So that fluency in this care model, the patient management model, is really important, and is called out within the Guide to Practice as well. So I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, we'll actually look at the Guide to Practice, which you'll have access to as APTA members, and just call out the areas I want you to pay attention to and to understand and learn regarding the Guide to Practice.